He wants this to go to work.
I'd like to call the March 22nd, 2022 Sherburne County Board meeting to order, and we will start with a moment of silence and a pledge of allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Okay, we'll need look to get an approval for a meeting minute, our agenda rather. Yes.
Thank you, Madam Chair, members of the Commission. With the Commission's permission, staff would like to amend one item and add one item. The amended item would be under regular agenda item number 6. We actually have received 2 grant award contract agreements. One is for $1.25 million, and the one in the agenda lists $500,000. So we'd like to discuss both of those. They have the same identical clause in question. And then if the board is amenable also, we would amend item 6.1 to have introductions of new staff. One is the county or Zach Johnson, our Deputy Veteran Services Officer. The other one would be the introduction of our new law librarian.
So would that 6.1 then be after the other one that you just mentioned?
No, we'd leave it as it is. So 6.1 and then, so amend 6.1 for introductions
And then 6.
and 6.6 for both grant agreements.
I'll move the agenda as amended.
I'll second.
Motion's been made and seconded to approve the agenda with the additions, amendments. Is there any discussion? Seeing none, all those in favor say aye.
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 Those opposed, nay. Motion is passed. I'm still a little uncertain where number 6.1 goes because,
It's just added to the current 6.1. It's just instead of one introduction, there's 2 introductions.
yeah.
I'll cue you up when we get there.
Yeah,
so,
to keep me, because for some reason, I don't see the current 6.1.
Okay.
Okay, so we're moving on to the consent agenda.
Madam Chair, I'll move approval of the consent agenda as presented.
Motion's been made to approve the consent agenda as presented. Is there a second?
I'll second.
Is there any, motion's been made and seconded. Is there any further discussion? Seeing that, all those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Those opposed, nay. Motion is passed. Okay, moving on to number 3, announcements.
Thank you, Madam Chair, members of the Commission. Just a few quick announcements. First of all, a note that the AMC Leadership Summit is scheduled for March 30th through April 1st of this month and then early next month. I believe 2 folks have already signed up from the board. If you are still interested, if you'd like Keisha and I know, we'll get you signed up and get lodging for you. Second of all, just a reminder that we will be having youth ATV training on the 30th of April here at the Government Center. If you're interested and don't have a copy electronically of the flyer, I can send you one and then you can distribute it as appropriate or put it on your own social media. Third, just to note that Andrew did present, it's not on the board agenda, but sent to you separately, the requested information on local option sales tax projects. So I think the 2 maps together will give you a comprehensive look at everything. Fourth, a note that 2023 valuation notices and 2022 tax statements went out yesterday, so people should start receiving them today and tomorrow. And so I'm sure you expect to get a couple of calls on that. Our assessor has been out and trying to explain to cities and townships the increase in the valuations and the basis for that. And then finally, just it's not on the agenda formally, but a quick update on legislative activities. The Health and Human Services Bill, which we are leading but not necessarily sponsoring or helping AMC with, is progressing through committee, and it's been very positive. And Amanda has been down and has testified on that. Our bonding bill, we are told by Senator Newman that we will have a hearing when hearings are scheduled, but they haven't been scheduled yet. So we'll be watching that one. And then we will be introducing this week the turnback bill for Trunk Highway 25 and County Road 11. All four of our representatives and senators that represent the two areas are supportive and will be chief authors, and we're trying to meet committee deadline on Friday. So the good news there is the two townships and the two cities did offer resolutions of support, and thanks to the board for your assistance in getting that through the cities and the townships. There was a little bit of change. Some language was added on Friday, which says that the redefinition of the route of Trunk Highway 25 does not become effective until there is an agreement between the Commissioner of MnDOT and the county for the turnback. So it's a way that the legislature kind of protects the status quo. So we made those changes, and our lobbyists are working on that as we speak. That's it for announcements.
Well, thank you. Okay, now we can move on to item number 4, which is open forum. Do we have anyone signed up?
Yes, Madam Chair, we have 3 people signed up. The first one is Dean Dieterman. He is here to speak on immigration, and then when you approach, can you please state where you are from?
Just one moment, sir. Just one moment. Do we want to read, we just want to go over the,
Sure, I'll read the
and then you can come up, so after.
the policy. So the purpose of open forum is to allow the public to speak and/or provide information to the board that does not require action by the board. Personal attacks of any kind against another person, commissioner, or employee are not allowed. Campaign-type presentations are not allowed. Time limit is 3 minutes per speaker, with a maximum of 5 speakers at open forum. The time limit may be shortened or extended at the discretion of the board chair. Discussions that require additional time beyond the original 15 minutes of this meeting will be recessed and continued following the continuation of the regular business meeting of the board. All input or information is to be addressed to the Board of Commissioners and not to members of the audience. Speaker handouts are public information. The county may make copies of such handouts for the public if needed. The county board chair will ensure that the open forum policy is followed. Note that any information provided to the county board on a matter that is subject to a public hearing will not be considered by the board during public comment. You are asked to write or submit your comments in accordance with the instructions for the public hearing to ensure that your opinion becomes part of the official record. And then one final note, there is not conceding of individual time to other times to build a time block. It is 3 minutes per speaker. With that, we can continue.
Okay, thank you very much. And now, please come forward. Thank you.
Thank you.
Good
morning.
Introducing yourself.
If I go over the rules, just stop me and I'll stop. At our last meeting, a group of protesters were protesting the sheriff's injustice of the jailing of immigrants.
Yes,
Could you
just-
please introduce yourself and share your address?
Excuse me, yes. I'm Dean Detterman, a concerned Sherburne County resident. And I live in Elk River city limits.
Thank you.
At our last meeting, a group of protesters were protesting the sheriff's injustice of the jailing of immigrants. I asked them, don't you think the injustice is encouraging immigrants to come here illegally? They angrily said, we need more laborers, and another said, they're already here. And I said to myself, they don't care about immigrants. This is all about open borders. There is no solving this without closing the borders and vetting the immigrants and letting them in legally. Too many criminals, gangs, and drug lords are slipping in, and nothing coming from SAIR makes sense. They encourage people to go along with breaking our common sense border laws, creating a class of people who can't assimilate into our culture, forcing them to slave labor and prostitution and other crimes. I'll be the first to admit sometimes the law needs to be ignored, but this time, then they do all this, this time it doesn't. Then they do all this filth and blasphemy in the name of Jesus at the same time. They have my pity. The sheriff is making a county a valiant stand between chaos and law and order. We must stand with him if we want to keep our county. The only way to keep a good sheriff is by fair and honest elections. Without that, the sheriffs will all become like our 30th Attorney General here in Minnesota. Thanks. I got a concerned Sherburne County resident.
Thank you for sharing.
Oh, one more thing. This is based on Nancy Hassett claiming that the Sherburne County residents are just in it for the money. I could turn you in that too if you want.
If you want to, yes, you can.
Okay, thank you.
Our next speaker is,
Next, we have Terry speaking on immigration.
okay, thank you.
Hi,
Introduce yourself.
hi. This is Terry, and I am Rayanne Danielowski's constituent. Good morning, Commissioners. Once again, I am before you requesting a workshop to discuss the issues regarding election process and the Dominion systems in Sherburne County. State Statute 203B 121, I will read portions. Subdivision 1, Establishment, Applicable Laws. A, the governing body of each county, municipality, and school district with responsibility to accept and reject absentee ballots must by ordinance or resolution establish a ballot board. The board must consist of a sufficient number of election judges trained in the handling of absentee ballots and appointed as provided in sections 204B19. The board may include deputy county auditors or deputy city clerks who have received training in the process and counting of absentee ballots. 204B19, election judges, qualifications. Subdivision 2, individuals not qualified to be election judges. A, except as provided in paragraph B, no individual shall be appointed as an election judge for any precinct if that individual, 4, is a candidate at that election. In going over the 2018-2020 ballot board judge list, we believe we have found that in 2020, 18 of the 31 ballot board judges might have been Sherburne County employees. In 2018, it looks to us that 6 of the 7 ballot board judges might have been Sherburne County employees. Of note, Diane Arnold was a ballot board judge in both elections, even in 2018, while she was also on the ballot. See Elk River Star News, November 7th, 2018, Sherburne County Auditor Treasurer Arnold wins re-election. These are the lists. The highlighted ones are who we believe are county employees. So subdivision 5, party balance requirement. No more than half of the election judges in a precinct may be members of the same major political party. In texting with Donna Bergstrom, the Minnesota GOP deputy chair, she wrote, quote, I match 0, none. Names from your absentee ballot board list with the MNGOP 2020 election judge list, end quote. In addition, Donna said she called the county and was told that Sherburne County uses a temporary agency to fill election judge positions. I am asking that my commissioner, Rayanne Danielowski, request that a workshop be scheduled today at this meeting. Our community action team would like clarification on any misunderstandings that we have. Transparency is what we are looking for. We want to completely understand your process and also want you to understand our concerns. Commissioner Dolan has already agreed to meet with us privately, and for that we thank you. Please do not put any more taxpayer dollars into the Dominion system when you have clear opposition to that from your constituents. Also, anything related to the election system or private property
Harry, your
should
time is up.
be publicly discussed,
Thank you.
not in a consent agenda. Thank you.
Do you have anything you want to leave with us as far as your, Terry? Did you have anything in print that you wanted to leave?
Save the whole packet of stuff for a workshop or when we meet with Dolan, but that's what my statement was. But I have all my supporting documents, and I will share with you.
Okay. So then, do we have another person too?
Yes, we do, Madam Chair. We have Henry Grinner of Elk River also speaking on voting.
And Henry, please introduce yourself and tell us where you're from.
Good morning. Henry Greiner, Elk River. Been a member or a citizen in Elk River for over 30 years in District 1. And I was here last meeting and spoke on an issue. I'm here today again to address what I see listed on your consent agenda as item number 3. Just had an opportunity briefly to review information about the new grant that you've applied for, $105,000 on the grant that was set up as the Help America Vote grant in 2002. And you of course have this information, but I'll leave this with my phone number. Just some notes that I looked over. Back in May of 2016, the existing commission at that time voted to bring in the Dominion voting machines. And I'm assuming that this grant is a continuation, what you have in the consent agenda, is a continuation of the purchases. Back then, it was about $10,000 per precinct for the Dominion machines. And now you're looking at about another $5,000 or a total of $105,000. And what I wanted to bring up as a point is there are citizens and consultants who have been reviewing the election results from the 2020 election ongoing and pulling Secretary of State data down since then and looking at numbers for the most recent elections. And I have a background. For about almost 8 years, I was IT manager up at Becker Furniture World, so I have a little bit of background with computers and how they work and what things you can do and not do with them. And I have a concern that we are using voting machines that are open to installation and upgrades and so on. I know on several news articles that have gone out talking about Dominion voting machines, the comment's been made that they're not connected to the internet. However, they are connected to the internet. Maybe they're not connected right at the time during the 8 a.m. to 8 p.m. voting periods, but they are connectable, and that has caused a number of problems. And Rick Weibel and others have brought that information out. And I know that we have been asking for an opportunity for your group to meet, and I would like to be part of that when Rick meets with your group and at least with Commissioner Dolan. Thank you for your time.
Okay. So is there anyone else?
Yes, Madam Chair, we have one more person who signed up. Gary Torsiger of Elk River.
Good morning. For the record, it's Gary Tonsiger. I think it's probably how I wrote it, so it's not real easy to pronounce. But I'm a resident in Elk River. I live at 11156 193rd Avenue Northwest in Elk River. I've been a resident here for a while, and I actually have a business here in Elk River that I've had for 26 years. So I'm a concerned citizen, especially of Elk River and all of Sherburne County. And I'm just going to talk a little bit about what Henry and Terry talked about. October 12th, 2021 Rasmussen report survey said that 61% of likely voters believe the election integrity issue, i.e. cheating, affected the outcome of the 2020 election. That's 56% of all Americans believe that. And in March 10th, 2022 study found that 75% of Republicans believe that the outcome of the 2020 election was affected by cheating. So it's a large group of people that just don't have confidence in our voting systems, how we do it, and the way we do it. I just happened to be observer I volunteered during the election review, the review of our ballots here in Sherburne County. And I was there that day, and I took very good numbers. Number one is we know that there were roughly 21,000 ballots that were mail-in ballots. 2016, there were 7,000, so that's 3 times as many as there were. But I observed that on the day of voting, that President Trump beat Mr. Biden 72% to 26%. all the mail-in votes, the 21,000 mail-in votes, Mr. Biden beat President Trump that day of 52 to 46%. Pretty big margin. So I thought that was unusual, but it could be because of the people that were voting by mail just happened to wanted to vote for President Biden. But what I did find out, though, that there was one city, I think it was Zimmerman, that didn't have a polling precinct or polling station, and everything was mail-in ballots. And even that precinct had 52 to 46% Biden, which I thought was very unusual. Just an analysis of the red counties, Trump increased his vote by 14.9%. Biden increased Clinton's vote by 27.3%. Those are in the red counties. And in the blue counties, of course, Mr. Biden's support outnumbered Trump's 3-1. Henry talked a little bit about some analysis that have been done. I don't know if you're familiar with Captain Kessel. He was a intelligence officer for the U.S. Army. And
Your 3 minutes are up.
3 minutes are up?
Yep.
Yeah.
Okay.
Thank you.
I have his information
Yeah,
here.
if you want to leave that, go ahead.
Yep, I'll hand all that out. Thank you.
Okay. Thank you very much for sharing your thoughts and ideas. And now we will close the open forum and go to open our public hearing. Dave Lucas. Welcome.
Morning, Madam Chair, members of the board. So, as y'all are aware, this public hearing was continued over from February 22nd to allow comments and written documents and stuff to be submitted. We received one comment that is from Waste Management. Going through their comments, staff made some revisions that we are proposing today. And those revisions are in your packet. They're highlighted in yellow. One of which, under definitions, staff is proposing to strike imminent hazard or remove that. The other one, setback 2.154.
Could you cite the page that you're talking about?
Yes, so my apologies. Page 7,
Okay.
imminent hazard. Striking that. Setback on page 14, 2.154. Given the comment received, we clarified that definition. And then moving to page 19, location of facility. 7.1D. We clarified the setbacks to public drainage systems, do not include roads. And then 7.1H. The original proposed setback was 1,000 feet. That was to be consistent with our parks setback. However, after considering comments received, staff now recommends reducing that setback to 500 feet. This should address many but not all concerns to proximity to landfills and public trails, while also addressing some of the concerns raised by Waste Management. Then on page 20, 7.5M, phase cell separation berms. Staff added this language to address uncontrolled runoff of stormwater off of liners. Stormwater that comes in contact with waste needs to be contained within that lined area and treated as leachate. However, after further consideration and examination of our existing language in the ordinance, staff believes that this issue can be addressed through strict enforcement of current ordinance language. Therefore, staff's recommending that we just strike that, not add that language. And I think that pretty much, other than liner testing, after comments received, and that's on page 24. And also on page 25 and 27. Given comments received, we're adding using latest industry standards. Then on page 28, storage of solid waste. Made one change in there, except as allowed in section 19.7B. That goes back to storage. And then that's the changes that staff made to the revision changes that were presented back in February 22nd. Any questions on any of those?
Any questions?
I don't have any questions.
Seeing, I don't see any, so. So, now we should go into the continued public hearing if there's anyone here that wants to speak. Seeing, do I have one person here? Okay. Please introduce yourself and where you're from.
I'm Mike Miller. I'm with Waste Management, representing the Elk River landfill. I'd just like to bring to everyone's attention that Waste Management is currently working with Livonia Township and to continue and change our facility in Livonia Township from a type of landfill that we're operating there now, which is a construction and demolition landfill, and we're looking at converting it into a municipal solid waste landfill. The ordinances that are proposed are generally an attempt to block that and would prevent us from doing it. And we would like an opportunity for Mr. Lucas to sit down with Livonia Township, Zimmerman, and ourselves and kind of discuss the particulars of these ordinances that we feel are an attempt to stop us from operating our business in Livonia Township. So we would ask the board not to vote on this today and continue it until we've had an opportunity to discuss this with Mr. Lucas in a meeting with all the affected parties. Thank you.
Thank you. Is there anyone else here for a public hearing? Okay, so should then we close the public hearing?
Close the public hearing.
Process?
I would make a motion to table.
I'll second.
Do we,
Motion's been made and seconded to table the vote. Is that the way to say that? Is there any further discussion?
A motion to table is non-discussable, so it goes
okay.
right to a vote.
Okay. So all those in favor say aye.
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 Those opposed, nay. Motion's passed. So we'll bring this back after,
To a date yet to be determined.
yeah, okay, to a date to be
Ask for.
determined. Okay,
Thank you, Chair.
thank you. Okay, so the public hearing will go on to our regular agenda. And item number 6.1, so, is introduction of new staff to the county board. And
We have two new staff to introduce, Madam Chair, members of the commission. First will be Bruce Price will make an introduction, and then followed by County Attorney Kathy Haney.
Morning, Madam Chair, Commissioners. I'd just like to take this opportunity to welcome our newly arrived CVSO, Zach Johnson, and I'll introduce the whole office here, which we don't get an opportunity to do that much. So to my right and your left, and the first would be Janae Stern. And then next to her is Erica Hannon. Zach is there, and Mike Schutte is the other CVSO. And I will ask, if it's okay, Zach to come up here and just give a short minute or so just on his aspect. And then what I would say is that all of the department personnel in the cities and areas that they reside in are integrated into different community organizations in that, from Zimmerman to Big Lake, Becker, Clear Lake, Legions, schools, TriCap, things of that nature. So they're integrated into the county, wide system. So with that, I've just turned this over to Zach and welcome him.
Good morning, Madam Chair, council members. I'm Zach Johnson, a Marine Corps veteran. This is a dream come true. I had a piece of helping out with the remodeling of Sherburne County with Adolphson and Peterson. Way back when, I was one of the project engineers, so to be able to physically be in here for the first time was kind of a dream come true in the remodeling process. I got to sit in the office and help out with the blueprint stuff on this. So being a part of that, and then now actually physically being here and doing what I love has been a dream come true. So thank you for the opportunity, and looking forward to working with all of you.
Welcome, Zach.
Well, welcome.
Thank you, welcome. And thanks to all the staff. It's good to see your faces in the boardroom today.
We appreciate all your work.
Good to see you not afraid of the front row.
Yeah, or they were late. It's like church. Just like church.
Okay.
It's that or the crying room.
So do we have, Kathy, someone you would like to introduce?
Madam Chair, Commissioners, I'm here in my capacity as a trustee from the Law Library Board. We have a new law librarian, Troy. Nope, stand up. Oh, you're going to let a Marine beat you? Come on over. Anyway, Troy Dobbs is a law student, and with your permission, if I could give him a couple minutes to talk a little bit about himself. Thank you.
Madam
Welcome.
Chairman, Council Board, thank you for having me. I'm Troy Dobbs. I graduated from St. John's University, cum laude, double majoring in economics and political science. I'm currently a first-year law student at St. Thomas. I'm honored to have the opportunity to be a law librarian at Sherburne County right now. I'm excited to bring forward all my knowledge and experience to the library and learn a lot through Kathy and Judge Kaminsky and the rest of the board. So I'm honored to have the position and will work my hardest to make it successful.
Thank you very much.
Thanks, Troy. Welcome.
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 It's always tough when a St. John's grad gets up there, so he says, I thought you graduated Lottie, how come? So.
You can't help yourself, can you?
Come on, Concordia's got nothing on St. John's, so we got to try once in a while. So.
Okay, well, thank you for coming and giving us an opportunity to meet you, and we welcome you, all of you, to Sherburne County. Okay, so should we move on to item number 6.2? Consider and approve the reappointment of the county agricultural inspector.
Good morning, Madam Chair, Commissioners. My name is Mitch Glines. I am a planner in the Planning and Zoning Department, also County Ag Inspector. I have been for the last 4 years, looking for a reappointment. 2021, I spent approximately 129 hours receiving training and carrying out the duties related to this role pursuant to the requirements of State Statute 18. Also, under the state statute, requirement is the county ag inspector must be appointed by the county commissioners, which we are here today doing. About 7% of my time is committed to this role. 40 hours was administration, point of contact for noxious weeds in the county. With noxious weeds comes complaints for overspraying. Also for people wanting to know where they can get their applicator's license, we direct them to either our extension or in St. Cloud. 10 hours was done, and including in that was we have to do an annual report for the MDA. In November of each year, I send out a form to the cities and townships. They provide how much they've spent on controlling noxious weeds, also how many acres or mileage they have done controlling. So I take all that information with our public works information and submit that to the MDA. That helps for their funding and tracking of the counties. 10 hours was done seed sampling, seed inspections. 17 seeds were taken. Normally we go to the big co-ops because it's easier to get samples and relate it to the label. The MDA did go out on their own. They did find a violation for grass seed at a local hardware store. Most seeds you have 12 months from date, test date. This one, grass seed, has 15 months. So it was past the 15 months. And no one gets in trouble. Basically, the MDA will work with the labeler to get a new label. They'll ship it to the hardware store. They'll put the new label on. In theory, they're supposed to take it off the shelf, but the MDA showed up on that day, and I think the labels came a few days later. So I was part of all that conversation. Everything was fine. 44 hours was spent on continued training. We're in District 2, which extends from us all the way to Cook County. So we attend 4 district meetings each year. We were meeting in Ogilvie, but with COVID, we started doing it virtually. People in Cook County really like that, so we continually do that virtually. Last year, I did attend the new county ag inspector. They call it the new county ag inspector, but it's also a good refresher course for people that only commit 7% of their time to it. So, and that's the majority of there's only 2 full-time ag inspectors in the state. It's Stearns County, and I believe, I want to say Becker County, but I'm not 100% sure. So most of us are in the same boat, that it's a minor percentage of our time. We did get to attend our conference in Chaska last year, which was in person. This year it will be in Morton. And then 35 hours is spent on weed inspections, control, and education. We are required by state statute 18 to publish the weed notice by May 15th. It was done in the paper, but we did get notification that we can do it on our website. It just has to be available to the public. So we'll do that this year by May 15th. Last time I spoke with you guys, last few years have been on the consent agenda. In 2019, I presented, you guys gave me good feedback on education and outreach. So from that, we continually do educator, or the environmental educator, we do articles. The new county newsletter, we did provide a wild parsnip article. And with that, we always provide our website, the link to it, because we did incorporate that onto our website under the environmental side, noxious weeds. We've worked really close with Public Works on a report of concern, so if somebody does find a noxious weed, they are able to map it and report it, and then Public Works will let us know and we'll reach out. And then we do attend the Sherburne County Association of Township meeting each April to provide the annual report from the townships and any new weeds that were added to the list. So with that, I am seeking reappointment, and if you have any questions, I am happy to answer.
Do you have any questions?
Madam Chair, I'll make the motion to appoint.
I'll second.
Okay, motion's been made and seconded to reappoint Mitch Glines as our county agricultural inspector and approve the 2022 work plan. Is that what you want to include also in
Yes,
noxious
please.
weed summary? Okay.
Sure.
Is there any further discussion? Seeing none, all those in favor say aye.
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 Those opposed, nay. Motion passed.
Thank you.
You ever have to say,
Congratulations.
I'm the weed inspector? It's not what you think?
A lot of jokes, a lot of puns with weed. weed position. Obnoxious weed.
Got to be pretty clear on what you're doing. Make a T-shirt.
So we should move on to 6.3, which is to consider and approve amending of the score line item budget. So we have,
Good morning, Madam Chair, members of the board. As indicated in the RBA, staff is requesting the board to approve an amendment to the score line item budget to provide for an additional 25% match in the amount of $75,753. Upon initial approval of the 2022 score budget, staff started to develop additional landfill abatement programs, which includes the proposed problem materials collection event, and that is described in the memo attached to the RBA, as well as some future source separated organics programs. Staff soon realized that there was not enough unallocated funds to support the collection event and additional source separated organic programs. Therefore, staff is requesting this additional match to provide funding for these programs.
any questions or?
Madam Chair, I'll move approval.
Okay, motion's been made to approve the request. Is there a second?
I'll second, Madam Chair.
Motion's been made and seconded. Is there any further discussion? Seeing none, all those in favor say aye.
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 Those opposed, nay. Motion's passed.
Thank you.
Thanks, Gabby.
Okay.
Not as glamorous as weed inspector, but
I'll try better.
Okay, now we can move on to 6.4, which is consider resolution number 032222-AD-3004 regarding abatement of fire damaged structure. And we have Doug with us. Is that correct?
Correct.
Nice to see you.
Nice to see you guys. Madam Chair, good morning, board members. Good morning to you also. This morning I'm here as a county building official asking for your approval of the resolution to abate a hazardous structure and the solid waste at a residence in Blue Hill Township, parcel ID number 15400385. The structure on the property was extensively damaged by a fire, which occurred in February of 2022. The property has also been in violation of Sherburne County's zoning ordinance and solid waste ordinances now for quite some time. After following up on a complaint relating to the fire, I have deemed the structure to be hazardous. Since the structure's integrity has been compromised, electrical wiring has been damaged and left exposed, windows and doors have been broken out, and the structure, being not secure, a health and safety hazard. Minnesota Building Code Section 1300.0180 requires all unsafe structures to be abated by repair or demolition according to state statute. As you may notice in the resolution, it does allow for the property owner to hire a licensed, Minnesota licensed structural engineer at their expense to determine if the structure is indeed salvageable. If the structure is deemed salvageable, repairs would be completed per the timeline that is in paragraph 2 of the resolution, and would also need to follow the engineer's report, obtain proper county permits, follow all building code requirements, and also along with that, abate all of the solid waste that is on the property. If the engineer's report comes back as non-salvageable or is not submitted to the county, the property owner would have the timeline defined in paragraph 3 to obtain a raising permit, demolish the structure, fill in the foundation, and remove all solid waste, leaving the property free of debris. If the owner chooses not to comply with any of this resolution, I will be following up with you with further steps. One thing that I just want to mention, I have been up there as of last week. I did receive a complaint that there was some possible work being done on the property without a permit. Upon arrival, I did notice some work being done. I did post a stop work order at that time for the unpermitted work. So with that, that's all I have, I guess. If you've got any questions.
Madam Chair, can I ask a clarification? Doug, it's not in the resolution, but I want to make sure we had in the motion the proper PID. You read something that was different than it's written in the RBA. Can you clarify?
154020385.
Yep, that's
Did I
correct.
misspeak? I'm sorry.
Yeah, we missed the 02 in the first part. So
Sorry.
Thank you.
Okay, so the one we have listed is correct?
It is correct, yeah.
Okay. Is there a motion?
I'll move approval of the resolution that's been presented, located in Blue Hill Township property.
Is there a second?
I'll second, Madam Chair.
Motion's been made and seconded. Is there any discussion?
I just have a quick question. Now, this fire just happened February 11th?
Yes.
It hasn't been, I mean, they haven't had a lot of time to work with insurance companies and that sort of thing.
Yeah, assuming they have insurance, I don't know, yeah.
Okay, but it is a hazard, and that's what we're concerned.
Well, that's the biggest issue, yes.
I think another thing that we should, is, you know, we're working with whoever, with the owners here, they probably have some options as far as what they're gonna pay in real estate taxes too, because significant change in the value. So I don't know how but I mean, they should know about that as they move forward too, both sides of what we can do for them.
Is there any further discussion? Seeing none, all those in favor say aye.
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 Those opposed, nay. Motion's passed.
Thank you.
Thank you.
We'll make sure the assessor's office is aware.
Yeah, that'd be assessor question.
Michelle's not here, but Diane's taking a note, so.
Okay, now we'll move on to item 6.5, which is to consider and approve the annual residential well sampling and analysis for properties down gradient of the Van Cove Big Lake landfill. And we have Dave with us. Hi.
Good morning. Actually, Madam Chair, if it pleases the board, I would like to have Avery come up and present on this.
Good morning, Madam Chair, Commissioners of the Board. As indicated in your RBA, staff are seeking approval for spring residential well sampling down gradient of the Vonco Big Lake closed landfill for an estimated cost of $7,900. This year's sampling and analysis would include the 6 previously sampled residential wells and an additional 5 residential wells. The county has been sampling these down gradient wells since 2012. Typically, the sampling events have occurred in the fall to coincide with the monitoring events that occur at the landfill itself. However, this year, to provide a more broad and comprehensive groundwater assessment, staff are looking to for sampling to be conducted in the spring and then include these 5 additional wells.
Okay.
Madam Chair, just a quick question. That money comes out of the solid waste fund?
Yes.
Correct.
I would make a motion to approve at this point, if that'd be appropriate.
A motion's been made to approve the request to approve the spring sampling and analysis of 11 residential wells located down gradient of the Vanco Big Lake landfill, utilizing services of Houston Engineering, and that's part of the $7,900. Is there a second?
I'll second, Madam Chair.
A motion's been made and seconded. Is there any further discussion?
Madam Chair, just for the public's clarification, this is something we've done every year that I've been on the board. We're just adding 5 additional sites and changing the timing of it more or less, so.
Correct.
Okay, any further discussion? Seeing none, all those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Those opposed, nay. Motion's passed.
Thank you.
Thank you.
And now we'll move on to item 6.6.
Thank you, Madam Chair, members of the commission.
Yes.
Just a couple of notes, and thank you for the amendment. So as you know, we've been applying for grants for our acquisition of the Big Elk Lake Park property, and we have received 2 grant awards, one for $500,000 and one for $1.25 million. As foreshadowed to you several months ago by the county attorney, we anticipated seeing in state contracts their state policy regarding COVID-19 vaccination or testing requirements. Both grant agreements have identical language, which you have in your packet, section 29, alluding to that. We did ask the state for clarification, and a very conservative analysis or interpretation of both the clarification and the statute is that we do think this would apply to county staff. However, given the nature of the grant award and given Gina's work on this, we do think that in the worst case scenario, should it apply, we already comply with the provisions of section 29. So then we go to the next section, which is a risk assessment, which is what would happen if the state then said, well, we want to go further even than our most conservative assessment. The risk to the board from a business standpoint is that we would reject the grant award, should they say that all staff have to be vaccinated or something egregious like that. We are seeing these agreements come in several areas, but in this particular case, it doesn't present what we consider to be an unacceptable business risk. However, we did want the board to be aware of it, and in this particular case, the enabling resolution says the county board may enter into an agreement, and so we did want affirmative county board action to accept these grants. Again, we don't see any problem with complying with the provision.
So what we're saying is we may enter into it, we may not.
Today, we would like is authorization from the board to enter into it. The resolution that we did when you allowed us to apply, a lot of cases what we'll do is we'll get permission from the board to apply and accept a grant at the same time, so we don't have to come back twice.
Right.
In this case, the resolution said may. We wanted you to be aware of it because we had flagged this to you that we thought this was going to be an issue, and we are seeing these in several grant awards. Again, in this case, it really doesn't apply to what Gina's doing, so.
So I will move approval of the DNR grant contract agreement and accept the $500,000 award as well as the $1.25 million award for acquisition of property for Big Elk Lake Park.
A motion's been made to approve the request. Is there a second?
I'll second, Madam Chair.
Motion's been made and seconded. Is there any further discussion?
Bruce, can you hit on the business risk on this again? So we're entering into the agreements. We're taking this money. We don't feel like there's business risk. Walk through if all of a sudden there is, where it puts us.
So if prior to receipt of the funds, or if we receive the funds but we've not utilized the funds, should they seek enforcement and it's something more than what we expect or what we've asked for, then we would just return the funds. Should we expend the funds, like down the road, and somehow the state came back to enforce it, the county would then have to decide, the board would have to decide, do you want to then comply with some different interpretation down the road, or would you just return the funds? At which case, if we've expended them for the property, you may have to face a financial issue, but given we're talking a year down the road, we just don't see it as a significant risk. At this point, the risk would be if the state says, we think this applies to the entire county building, every staff member who walks in here, then we would come back to you and say, dump the money. But we don't have plans to expend it for several months, so we don't have a concern.
In being that, would it warrant, should we have this conversation again before we expend the funds to make sure our analysis is?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, we can sure do that. I mean, we're going to see other grants like this, unfortunately. I feel like the state is about 9 months behind. We had this debate locally. The Supreme Court said you don't need it, but the state of Minnesota had already implemented it. But we are, I think, Kathy, you'd agree, you're starting to hear or see it in other agreements as well. So I think, we're just going to flag it to you. But again, the way this grant operates, it's really in the theoretical world. Yeah.
It feels like, Madam Chair, if I might, it feels like a pendulum swinging, doesn't it?
Yeah.
I mean, when we're here, and I think that we're going to see that pull back. And I think we may need to follow it and may need to ask for it as part of, as we move forward with the acceptance of it. There may be some negotiations that might be available to us with the grant.
And I'd be remiss if I didn't say that it is a conversation in the legislature. Unfortunately, it's an election year and it's a partisan issue, so I don't expect the legislature will take action. But it is a little surprising the governor hasn't rolled this back already, so.
Is there any further discussion? Seeing none, all those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Those opposed, nay. Motion's passed. Okay, so moving on to item number 7, which is consider and approve the American Rescue Plan Act update and recommended approvals and expenditures with Dan.
Good morning,
Morning.
Commissioners. First up is the biweekly expenditures under $50,000. We do have 3 of those this week for a total of $87,671.01. So looking for approvals on those expenditures that were included in your packet.
Madam Chair, I'd move approval of the attached list of expenditures.
So that would be the first one for under
Correct.
50,000. Is there a second? Motion's been made. Is there a second?
I'll second that, Madam Chair.
Motion's been made and seconded to approve the first line item for expenses under $50,000. Is there any discussion? Seeing none, all those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Those opposed, nay. Motion's passed.
Next up is a cybersecurity project that was over $50,000. So I'm going to invite Brian to talk a little bit about that project.
Good morning, Brian.
Good morning, Madam Chair and Board. Thank you for the time. Wanted to come with a request for ARPA funds for privileged access management. So all of you are used to the one-time passwords that are needed when you get into your financial and bank accounts. Privileged access management provides a one-time password along with logging and tracking of our privileged management accounts, and those privileged management accounts are within a computer network. There are certain accounts that have keys to the kingdom, if you will, if you don't mind that metaphor. So those sorts of accounts will be getting logged and getting alerting sent on those so we can be proactive and swifter to react if there is any sort of compromise on those high privileged, broad accessed accounts within our computer network. So that is what a PAM system would do for us, and we're looking for ARPA funding and would comply within the cybersecurity provisions of ARPA to fund that for our network.
Thank you.
Yes.
Would anyone like to make
I'll move approval.
a motion's been made to approve the request for PAM cybersecurity of over $50,000. Is there a second?
I'll second, Madam Chair.
Is the motion's been made and seconded? Is there any further discussion? Seeing none, all those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Those opposed, nay. Motion's passed.
Thank you, Madam Chair and Board.
Thank you. Now we move on to item number 2, which is broadband grant agreements.
Yeah, we're here today to talk about 2 potential projects, and Keisha has a map up front. I apologize for the crudeness of the map. I barely skated through art in high school, but the red would be the Livonia Project, and we're going to talk about that one first. It's a $580,000 project cost, and the grant request would be for $73,000, which would be split 50-50 with the township. So the Sherburne County grant request is $36,500. It scored a 95 out of 100. This is our top scoring project, and a lot of that is because the grant request was only 12% of the total cost, or 12.5% of the total costs, and it has a large number. 169 passings would be part of this project. I do not have a grant agreement in the packet. We are still working on that. We do have an RVIG agreement for the next one that we'll talk about. It'll be similar to that, but it'll be a little different. It'll be on a reimbursed basis as opposed to a full subrecipient agreement, and we are working on that language right now. So if you'd like us to, we could either approve it pending county attorney approval, or we could bring it back to the board at a later date, whichever you choose, if you do choose to move forward with this project.
I'll move approval, pending county attorney approval.
Okay, motion's been made. Is there a second?
Quick question.
I'll second, so we can.
And then
Yeah.
you can ask your question. Okay, motion's been made and seconded. Now, discussion.
Yeah, no, I just wanted to clarify, are we passing both in the same
Just Livonia,
Just Livonia.
Just Livonia.
Okay,
passing Livonia.
okay.
And representatives from Midco are here if you do have any specific project questions.
Nope, that's fine.
Any further discussion? Seeing none, all those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Those opposed, nay. Motion's passed. And now we'll move on to the Elk River Project.
The next project is in Elk River that would serve up to 247 passings, and on the map, that's the 3 areas circled in blue, both on the north of Highway 169 and then on the southern eastern tip of Elk River as well. Like I said, that would serve 247 potential residents. This one's a little larger project, $2,009,197 in project costs, and the grant request is $1,205,518, which we are recommending splitting with the city at a 75-25 clip. So the Sherburne County portion would be $904,213. This scored a 70 out of 100, and the reason this one was a little lower than the previous project was the grant request was 76% of the project costs, or 60% of the project costs. So it also just missed scoring higher. 250 passings would have been another 5 points, so it would have scored a little higher, 247, so pretty close there. So staff is recommending this project. It's a little higher cost because the existing infrastructure isn't as close as the other project that we approved earlier today.
Madam Chair, Dan, is this split consistent with what we've done with townships?
Townships were requested either half the project cost or 75,000, the greater of the two.
Okay.
So it's about 10% of the ARPA dollars that they received. This request is about 10% of Elk River's. Actually, it's 11.3% of Elk River's total ARPA requests. So that's kind of the theory of where that request came from.
Okay.
And Arvig is here also to answer, Laura from Arvig, to answer any questions.
And I think one of the, Madam Chair, one of the key things we look at with these projects too is not just how many passings it serves now, but you look at the areas that both of these potential projects are serving dramatically more. If you look at, future plats and developable area, these will serve a great deal of residents not too long into the future, so.
Okay. Would anyone like to move?
Madam Chair, I'll move approval of the Elk River project with Arvig.
A motion's been made to approve the Elk River Project. Is there a second?
I'll second.
Any further discussion? Seeing none, all those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Those opposed, nay.
I just want to make sure that included the agreement that was included in the packet.
Yeah. with,
Correct, so the project and agreement, correct,
yeah.
thank you.
So motion's passed. Okay.
And then we are still talking about 3 additional projects with additional townships as they're kind of weighing what they want to contribute to the project. So hopefully we'll be bringing more back at a future date.
Great.
Thank you.
Thank you.
I think this is so exciting that we're getting a way to move forward with broadband in our county.
We're filling a lot of gaps, absolutely. Thank you.
Yep, thank you. So now, we're gonna do the correspondence first, and then we'll get,
Madam Chair, I can start out. My list is short this week. I just had the county EDA meeting.
who else would like to go?
Madam Chair, I can struggle through it here. I had the EDA meeting as well. MCAT a couple of days. And that's all that I had. Oh, no. Oh. Micah board meeting as well.
Okay, I had AMC Futures Planning Meeting, Central Minnesota Jobs and Training Workforce Meeting, a Central Minnesota Jobs and Training Joint Powers Meeting, Great River Regional Library Finance Meeting, and Board of Trustees Meeting, and a TriCap Executive Meeting. And just wanted to bring up as far as upcoming or future Rayanne, Barb, and I were invited to consider being part of a leadership cohort for women through NACO, a partnership between NACO and AMC. And that is something I'm interested in, and so I would like us to consider assisting in funding that if possible. So it's a online leadership, and AMC perhaps will have some funding, but so I would like the board to.
We have some budget set aside for those types of things, don't we?
Yeah, we were looking into it, we just couldn't get ready for today,
Okay.
so we'll have it for the next board if we have to get board approval.
Okay.
Okay, and we need to know pretty soon.
Yeah, I think once we know, we can make a temporary, a positive indication and then subject to, so.
Okay.
We may not need it, we just have to look at the budgets and what it fits under.
Madam Chair, I have a couple more that I missed. North Star Scoping meeting, Tri-County Solid Waste meeting as well. Thank you.
Okay, and then I had SHAC Executive Committee meeting on the 10th, and that overlapped with the Council on Aging, so I wasn't able to go to that one. And I attended the Fair Board meeting on the 16th. I think that's all. Okay. So is that, okay, everyone? So we can adjourn the regular meeting now and open our Community Health Board meeting? Welcome, Nicole.
Good morning, Madam Chair. Good morning, Commissioners.
So, first we approve the Community Health Board proposed agenda.
I'll move approval.
Is there a
Second.
second?
I second it.
A motion's been made and seconded to approve the Community Health Board proposed agenda. Any discussion? Seeing none, all those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Those opposed, nay. Motion's passed. And then the second item would be to review and approve the Community Health Board meeting minutes from January 18th, 2022.
Move approval, Madam Chair, of the minutes.
Motion's been made. Is there a second?
I'll second, Madam Chair.
Motion's been made and seconded. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Those opposed, nay. Motion's passed. Okay. So now, review and approve the Sherburne Statewide Health Improvement Partnership Letters of Agreement. Nicole.
Good morning. So through our Statewide Health Improvement Partnership Grant, we have the opportunity to send funds back out to our community members who will work towards policy, system, and environment changes around the strategies that the SHIP grant provides, which are mental well-being, active living, healthy eating, and tobacco cessation and prevention. And so we had 13 approved by the Department of Health recently. All of them were from the school sector. 10 of those had components of mental well-being, 2 healthy living, 3 active living, and 1 tobacco. They have been vetted by the Department of Health and are ready for approval. We do have 4 more pending approval, and so when those should those be approved by the Department of Health, we'll bring those back for approval as well.
So we're looking for a motion to approve the, make sure,
The letters of agreement for.
letters of agreement, okay?
Madam Chair, I'll make that motion.
I'll second.
Okay, motion's been made and seconded to approve the letters of agreement for the mini grants as presented. Is there any discussion? Seeing none, all those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Those opposed, nay. Motion is passed. Okay, now we'll go on to the bi-monthly report.
Got a short presentation here as well. Just a few updates of the work that's been going on in the Public Health Division over the last month or so. That's okay. For our Public Health Division in particular, we have been working on annual reports. We have 2 reports that are due this month. One report is for the Department of Health regarding our finances and staffing that were used for 2021. And in particular, there's additional space for COVID. And so we'll get that information back to you once we get kind of our final numbers. And then the second report is due at the end of this month, and it really was an assessment for us to look at our foundational capabilities. There we go. And that's been a discussion in our SHAC committee, which is our statewide Community Health Services Advisory Committee, of which Commissioner Burant and Commissioner Phoebe now sit on. And so we've really been looking at, what is it that local public health really needs to be prepared for in the future, and where are our current capacities. So this is just a highlight of some of the framework that the Department of Health is using to lead the discussions, and some of the priority areas that we are looking at. We're also in the midst of our local public health assessment and planning process. So who is involved with this work? It's a partnership between CentraCare, Stearns, Sherburne, and Benton counties as we look to do a community needs assessment and then develop a community health improvement plan. We are statutorily required to do this process as well as CentraCare as part of their hospital association, and so we do this on a 3-year cycle. Our plan is set to be ready for approval by June, so we'll be bringing those formal plans back for approval and discussion. And just some of the tools that we're using this year, we're using the MAP framework, so mobilizing for action through planning and partnerships. And there's 3 areas of assessment that you can note there: community status, community context, and community partners. An update for our health promotions unit. We recently underwent management evaluation for our WIC program. Great news to report. We had complied with all of the federal WIC requirements and got some positive feedback for how our staff were able to pivot during COVID and offer some kind of creative ways to keep clients engaged. So we're happy to report on that. And then our public health unit, I think I've been reporting on more numbers about families that we're visiting. But this time I thought it would be nice to share some of the demographics of the families that we've served in the last year. So just the average age of mom is about 30. About half of those families are single-headed households. Many of those have reported child protection involvement as a parent. A very small amount, but still notable, have reported jail or prison time as a parent. A larger percentage, about a quarter, has reported some use of substances. And then there's also a fair amount that have reported CP involvement when they were a child. So some of those are the factors that, as we visit with families, we're working on interventions to help prevent some of those things from repeating. Another thing to note, we know our population is certainly changing, and so those families that identified as persons of color has also grown in our caseloads as well. And about 60% are not employed, although some do have full-time employment and some are part-time employed as well. And now for the fun information, COVID. So not a lot of updates on COVID other than a really nice decline in the number of cases. February ended at a low since August. And then in March here, we're really seeing cases decrease. So about 4 per day for Sherburne County, about half of what the state is seeing. Again, we do note that a lot of over-the-counter tests are still being provided, and we do not record those. But when we look at the data for test results from the state, they say we're still in a good range of testing. So we still feel like we have a good handle on the amount of cases circulating. And then again, we've been watching our child cases, so the 0 to 17-year-olds. And again, we're seeing a nice decrease in those as well, actually less than last year at this time. The CDC has shifted a bit to show community levels of COVID, and so this is their new grid: low, medium, and high. Those numbers are based on greater or less than 200 cases per 100,000, new COVID admissions to the hospital per 100,000, and the percent of staffed inpatient beds for COVID. So with all of that data, the graph in the lower corner, when I gave this presentation to the management committee last week, the majority of the state was green. And when I pulled the numbers yesterday, we certainly see a lot more yellow, so more in that medium risk. We are still in low risk here in Sherburne County, but a lot of our neighbors have entered into that medium risk. Cases are still fairly low throughout Minnesota, but we have seen a slight increase in those hospitalizations. For us in Sherburne County, that's been very minimal. We've only had 3 hospitalizations in the last 7 days. So, and CentraCare has reported that they've had the lowest hospitalization numbers since July. So they're feeling quite able and ready to serve any clients that come their way. Just a few more tidbits. Our positivity rate continues to go down even just this month, and so has the state. So being under that 5% is very desirable. I talked about hospitalizations a bit. There is another set of 4 free tests available to citizens. So if people are still looking for over-the-counter tests, you can get an additional 4 still now following that link. Vaccines are still available here throughout the state as well as here at Sherburne County. We have decreased the frequency because we've had decreased demand, but we still are offering at least monthly for right now. There still is Kids Deserve a Shot incentive for scholarships, and those kids who have been vaccinated in the last 60 days can still enter in for that drawing. And then the Department of Health has been doing some work for isolation and quarantine procedures for our schools. So helpful for them as they are kind of entering this last leg of the school year. For our vaccination rates, we continue to be right around that 50% level. We haven't seen a lot of uptick here in our vaccination rates, but know that they are available. Great growth for those who are most at risk, so that 50 to 65 year plus age group. So, you know, that is really an area where we're most concerned. And just a few things, the Omicron variant has certainly shown its force in some of our European and China areas. We are expecting to see that uptick in the US, and we've already started to see that. They're estimating about 25% of our new cases are this new strain of Omicron. Seems to be a bit more contagious, but not more severe. Early studies show that the vaccine and booster continue to prevent severe disease. And then we do have some accessibility to some of those COVID pills, although they're pretty limited supply. And then they're really reserved for those that are most severely at risk.
Chair?
Yes.
So could you talk a little bit about the efficacy of the home tests? I'm hearing people say they don't work. And I just want to know if you know anything or have read anything about that.
Sometimes it's really based on timing. So if you're early on in your infectious period, it may not, or if you're kind of at the end of it, it is less accurate. But if it's in that middle period, those antigen tests do work pretty effectively. I think early on, Minnesota didn't adopt those antigen tests just because of that fact. The timing really is a factor in showing positivity.
The recommended timing is 3 to 5 days after a known exposure.
Yes, and I will say I don't know the latest data because some of the variants now are showing up in different time frames. The symptoms may be earlier or later. I don't know for sure what the most current recommendation is. I would say it is at least still fairly reliable, and if you have a negative test and you're still thinking you have symptoms or have been exposed, the saliva tests are a next best, those PCRs.
Okay, thank you.
Any other questions or discussion?
Madam Chair. Nicole, it feels like we've maybe weathered the storm for the most part. Cross your fingers. Now your staff has been through about everything you can imagine. Did they get to take a deep breath, and how are they holding up? I mean, there should be a little opportunity to kind of refresh if somehow that can be done.
We are currently working on that. We just actually implemented a survey to get some feedback from staff. How are you feeling? What kind of things do you still need some support on? The Department of Health has been super helpful. We have many trainings, lunch and learns. We can be flexible with some of our funding to do some of that mental well-being. So we certainly have been making plans for how we do that. Many staff are very relieved to be back to some of their daily duties. But again, building caseloads is difficult as, you know, they're kind of starting over. So frustrating that they can't just pick up where they were at. Also noting that a lot of our families have more complex needs than they did a couple of years ago with the social isolation and feeling burdened by having kids at home and having to do some of that job loss. I think our staff are really feeling that that's a place of concern and we need to do some additional education and training.
I'm sure you'll have some that are ready to move on, really excited, and you're gonna have some that it's gonna be difficult to move on, so those needs are gonna be different, and we're gonna have to figure out a way to address them, I would imagine.
Absolutely.
Chair, also, you know, Felix is always more thoughtful than I am, so those are great comments, Felix. I appreciate that, but, you know, your department, you prepare, this is what you prepare for your whole life. You know, a pandemic, and you wish it never happened. So we've lived through it, and I just agree with Felix that sensitivity to where staff is and whatever support you need from the board, or if you do have an event of sorts and it's appropriate, I'd appreciate to be invited in if available.
I will absolutely remember that.
Okay.
Thank you.
I just think that you've done such a wonderful job during this very difficult time, and I want to thank you and your staff for everything you've done. I think you've done a marvelous job in a very difficult situation.
I will take that back. I will say, too, I think we feel very supported within Sherburne County. Our department has been extremely flexible and supportive for us, the board, the administration. So we, too, appreciate the ability to respond in a way that we should and have the resources to do that.
Well, thank you so much.
Thanks.
Okay, so now we would adjourn the Community Health Board meeting, and we have a break for a few minutes. How long do you want?
I'd recommend 10 minutes, and just a note for the board, we will have a fair number of folks here for the diversity, equity, and inclusion discussion, so if the board is comfortable, we'll invert the items, have that one first, and we'll do it in this room. Then if the board wants, we can do the second workshop with Dan in the conference room after that. But if you're okay, we'll flip those so that we can get the diversity group in here.
Okay, so after our break, we'll come back here and we'll receive an update from the Diversity, Equity, Inclusion County Work Group. Okay.
So maybe 10 minutes, so 10:35.
Okay, 10:35.